Huge news today as conference realignment in the ACC just got another shocking update. We're going to break it all down for you and get into it right away. So let's jump in. We've been telling you that the ACC had 4 teams that were pretty locked in, pretty ready to go when it came to conference realignment and breaking the grant of rights in the ACC. We had David Hood on from ClemsonTigerNet.com a couple of weeks ago. He told you guys that there were probably closer to 6 teams that were already ready. Those 6 teams: Florida State, UNC, North Carolina, Miami, Virginia Tech, and NC State. Well, today, Brett McMurphy is about to break the internet because he put out a tweet that said now there are 7 teams ready to go, ready to leave the ACC. They're the 6 teams that we had told you a couple of weeks ago, and he added Virginia, which David Hood and I speculated could be a team that makes sense because their future is very tied to that of Virginia Tech's. These schools, as Ross Dellinger reported, have met in past several months with lawyers examining the grant of rights to determine just how unbreakable it is. The ACC deal does run through 2036, which we've told you several times. A few takeaways here, a few things to talk about, but this is exactly what we've been telling you guys was coming. I don't know if you guys sharing this info has been what's expedited it, but we have talked about this the entire time. From our very first video a couple of months ago on conference realignment, we told you the most likely path to getting out of the ACC, if you're a Florida State fan, Clemson fan, North Carolina fan, Miami fan, or one of these other 3 schools that have now been listed, was dissolving the grant of rights. Challenging this in court, probably not very likely. Renegotiating with the ACC, probably not very likely. But it was going to take the big dogs, Florida State, Clemson, and the others, finding a group, finding teams that they could be compatible with to leave the conference. And it looks like we may have that now. 7 teams ready to go, ready to get out. What's the impact? How does this change things? How does this move things forward? We're going to get into all of that. Make sure that you're sharing this video. Make sure that you're tagging your friends that are fans of teams in the ACC. You want to subscribe, you want to like, you want to comment. All those things are great. We're going to continue to cover conference realignment to the very best of our abilities. I just got off the phone with somebody very close to the situation, and we'll share all that. But the best thing that you can do to help this process is to continue applying pressure. You do that by sharing the video. So make sure that you get the word out there on what's going on. The path to leave is for 8 teams to break the grant of rights. Right now, we're at 7. Based on McMurphy, who is an incredibly reliable source, someone who is incredibly plugged in with these conferences and with conference realignment, we are at 7 teams. You need one more. You need one more team to vote to dissolve the grant of rights, and we're done. We're out. You don't pay the $120 million buyout. You're not on the hook for $300 to $400 million, up to maybe $700 million worth of the media rights deal that the ACC and ESPN and them own. You're one team away from being out scot-free and being able to move past this nightmare of a media rights deal, an ACC deal that Florida State, Clemson, Miami, and others have been hampered by. We know the ACC gives preferential treatment to the Tobacco Road schools, to those North Carolina schools, and it's time that we got out. This is the path forward. Having Virginia and Virginia Tech both interested, involved, and working toward this is exactly what we predicted. Having a group of 8 teams, we're at 7 now, but having that group of 8 teams voting to dissolve the conference is what's going to bring it down. It was never going to be something that we were able to challenge in court and have any kind of success with. It wasn't something the ACC was going to renegotiate. It was going to have to come down like this. Who is that 8th team going to be? We're going to talk about that in just a moment, but before we do that, I am going to give some love to our friends over at Satividol. They are the ones who are making this video possible today. They are a CBD company who have excellent products, all made and grown here in the state of Florida. They have a muscle recovery cream that's on screen right now. It's got 3,000 milligrams of CBD. It is used every day in this house. Think about Bengay with CBD in it. Absolutely amazing benefits. You can go to Satividol.com seminoles.com right now or thegramco.com right now. Use code TJ25. Get you some of that sports recovery cream. Check out their soft caps. They've got other recovery creams and gels, even stuff for your pets. Go check them out today. I appreciate them for their support on this video. Who is that 8th team going to be? Well, there's a ton of controversy around this, but I want to talk about it. I want to put my input in, but I have been told, and I just got off the phone with somebody very close to this situation, an attorney who has looked over the grant of rights, has access to it. We can make all that available if you guys would like down in the description. But I believe that Notre Dame, though they do not need to be one of the 8 teams to break the grant of rights, I do believe that they're in heavy, heavy negotiations with the SEC and the Big Ten right now. And they could be the 8th team to vote to get out of this. Their vote is not necessarily needed. You don't need a majority of 9 because they are not technically a 16th team, but they do have full voting rights, and they could be the 8th team to break this. Other possibilities like Louisville and Pittsburgh exist as well. I think both of those teams would make excellent Big 12 fits, and I think you could see either one of those 2 teams join the other 7 that we already have to break the grant of rights in the ACC. I think it's very, very important to think about and note that that 8th team will probably come very quickly. We've been aware that there were 4 teams. When Clemson's, Florida State's, Miami's, and North Carolina's ADs all came out asking about unequal revenue sharing, asking about more funds for their programs. We told you from the beginning, that was not because they ever thought that that would get passed or that would get approved. That was so that they could have the leverage, the bargaining power, and the ability to go out and end up leaving the conference. They knew that they would get told no that, but they wanted to be able to say, hey, we tried to work this out your way. We gave you suggestions. We gave you ideas, and you just wouldn't live up to them. You wouldn't own them. You wouldn't make it right. And so now we're out. 7 teams is really pretty impressive that it's happened this quickly. We were at 4 about 2.5 months ago when we put our first video out. Just 2 weeks ago, we got up to 6 when we spoke with David Hood. He added NC State and Virginia Tech. And now with UVA being number 7, you're just in the search for that 8th team. Again, Notre Dame, Louisville, Pittsburgh would be the 3 teams that I would look at and say one of them could be the 8th and final piece to get out of this. Now, you got to find landing spots. I think Florida State, Clemson are very natural fits for the SEC. I think Miami and North Carolina would certainly have a home. Virginia Tech, Virginia, NC State are those Big 12 type teams. Notre Dame leaving, they would obviously have a landing spot in the Big 10, independent or SEC, whatever they really wanted. Louisville and Pittsburgh, I think that those could be really good Big 12 teams as well. How many will the Big 12 take? Obviously, they've got a lot going on with Colorado and things in the Pac-12 that we've been hearing about as well. But what if teams make it to conferences that they're not going to make as much money? We've talked about that really in full, which I'll link a video above right here that you can go watch and you can find out more about that. But essentially the theory or the idea is the teams that make it to the SEC and Big 10 will make so much more money. I'm talking $600 million more over the course of what the grant of rights would have run. The teams that maybe go to the Big 12 will probably lose about $60 million in that time frame. I think the teams that make it to the bigger conferences like the SEC and Big 10 could essentially pay those other teams to make them whole for the amount of money that they're going to lose as the time goes on that they're in the Big 12. How feasible is that? I don't know. How easy would it be to accomplish through things like home and aways, extra games on the road? Very, very easy. You would be able to take care of the revenue disparity from a team going from the ACC to the Big 12 fairly easily. ACC meetings coming up this week, and we talked about this in our video on Florida State and Clemson specifically. Dabo missing those meetings. If you watched that video more than once, thank you for your support and thank you for watching it. YouTube glitched out on us and deleted that video, and that was frustrating. Sorry that we're uploading this one so fast after that, but breaking news calls for breaking videos. ACC meetings coming up this week. I expect things to be very tense, very awkward. I believe that Graham Neff at Clemson, I believe that Michael Alford at Florida State will be very direct with what they ask for from the ACC. I think you'll have a lot coming out of these meetings. There are a lot more people going. I just spoke with somebody else on the phone that is going to this meeting that hasn't been in 5-6 years, but they are going this time because they know the powder keg that is brewing right now. And the tweet from McMurphy, the report from Dellinger at SI could not have come at a more critical, more crucial time. I've been being told all along that we should expect something before the season starts. And this was a big piece of that. You're one team away from this conference being dissolved and the grant of rights being broken. And we have never been closer to a reality that is the upper echelon teams in this conference, and really all of the teams in this conference, having an opportunity to go and prove their worth. Now, the other side of that is if you root for a team or you support a team that maybe doesn't have the same kind of worth, are you worried? Are you concerned about where things are heading and what's coming right down the pike for your favorite school? Tough to answer. As a Florida State guy, that's not really one of my bigger concerns. One of my bigger concerns is that the ACC is a sinking ship, and it certainly seems like there are some lifeboats out there and available, and some teams in this conference are going to be able to capitalize on that. Some teams probably not so much. But I do think that what happens at ACC meetings this week in Jacksonville is going to be very, very important. Obviously, you'll hear more around unequal revenue sharing. I think the goal there, once again, to reiterate, is to apply pressure. I don't expect that to get passed. I don't expect anyone to agree to that. Do they try and appease Florida State, Clemson, UNC, Miami, and these others with that? Possibly, but I don't think that's a long-term solution. I think Florida State could get unequal revenue sharing passed tomorrow, and if an eighth team came out the next day, they'd be out of the conference. So I don't expect anything to really come through from that. I think that what we are seeing now is the beginning of the end of the ACC conference. I spoke again with David Hood from TigerNet.com. He told us he does not expect Clemson football to be playing in the ACC in 3 years. I think the timeline for that could get moved up even further. I think we are looking at a scenario in a situation where Florida State and Clemson may have something massive announced within the next couple of months. It would not shock me at all if we had a bigger announcement after ACC Media Days, ACC kickoff there in Charlotte. And as we get into August, as we get into fall camp, that's when I'm anticipating an absolute bombshell to be dropped based on people that I've spoken with behind the scenes that are very well connected with what's going on in this conference realignment world. I believe that we will have some kind of news coming out very, very soon. There is no chance that if we get to 8 teams, and Brett McMurphy is one of the most reliable sources in the college football world, there is no chance that if we get to one more team that is not coming out immediately. The grant of rights will be dissolved, and Florida State, Clemson, and others will be free to go on and choose a conference of their liking. Again, I like some of the major players to end up in the SEC and the Big Ten. Why are you not hearing about this from the major media types? I'll tell you exactly why. Because they work for ESPN, they work for CBS, and they know that their best vested interest is a Florida State that makes ESPN and the ACC a ton of money without getting very much benefit from it on the back end. You're only seeing this from the national reporters that are not tied to ESPN and CBS. You're not seeing it from those guys. Shout out to Brett McMurphy, Ross Dellinger, SI, and Action Network for getting this info out. We told you that there were 6. There are now 7, and we're going to continue to keep you updated on this. Again, if you watch this full 15-minute video, do us a favor and hit that share button. Make sure that you're getting this news and info out there as much as is physically possible. Comment down below with questions. I like interacting on these videos. I think they are super fun. It's exciting to see other teams now joining in the mix. Officially reported, Florida State, UNC, Miami, Clemson, NC State, Virginia, and Virginia Tech gets us to 7 teams. We will continue to cover this, and I'm not going to beg for subscribers, but if you do want to be alerted when we have stuff like this coming out, you can hit that subscribe button. You can hit the thumbs up button if you're ready to get the heck out of this conference. Again, I appreciate our friends over at Satividol. They do a great job. If you have any bumps, bruises, aches, and pains, make sure that you're using their CBD muscle cream and muscle gels that you guys can get. They are phenomenal. Appreciate you guys for the support. If you want to see our other videos on conference realignment, we talked about how the revenue would work for X number of teams going to this conference, that conference, and the Big 12. You can view all of our conference realignment videos in one place by clicking this playlist right here.